Hi, Omega Chaos here with another Yu-Gi-Oh! Tech profile, and this is a special one. I participated in Polish Nationals this year, and I decided to use the Pure Blue Eyes deck because I did really well in online testing in YG Omega, and I think it's the most balanced deck. It plays around most of the counters that are played in the current metagame, like Witch Armies, Fualos, and other stuff like that. And also, of course, Tron Lockbird is a really broken card as well, that it can discard deck can play around that as well. And all around it's just a really decent deck. I decided to not use any of the engines. I tried to use the Dragonity engine. I tried to use the Metamorph engine. Of course, I can't afford the Primate engine at all, and I decided not to borrow it either. Just the Pure Blue Eyes just worked out the best for me, I think. So unfortunately, I did not do extremely well in the tournament. I went 4-3, so 4 wins and 3 losses. But one of the matches was pretty much complete fumble by me. I should have won that, but I made a really huge mistake with calculating life points. So I guess I will talk about that later in the matchups. So I guess let's go to the deck. So of course, first I'm using the 2 Blue Eyes White Dragons. So of course, one with the original anime artwork and the other with the manga inspired artwork. That would be very nice. Of course, most players of course play 2, and I decided to play 2 as well because I think most of the time you don't need the third one, but of course with bestials running around, sometimes you can get your 2 Blue Eyes banished, but I have another card that can play around that. So yeah, but in future I might play 3 of this card because of the new support card in Duelist Advance. Then using 1 Blue Eyes Checked Dragon. Really amazing card. I think this card was pretty much the best card in the whole tournament. It helped me out quite a lot in terms of outing certain cards and really good in a grind game as well. Just constantly bring it back if any cards are destroyed, and has a really good bounce effect as well. Definitely very nice. And also protects your other cards, which means it protects your True Light, which is the most important card in the deck. Then of course I'm using 3 Maiden White, the Soul of Blue Eyes White Dragon. Definitely really amazing, because of course send it to the graveyard, and then immediately place True Light to the field from deck, graveyard, or hand. Definitely really good for sure. Of course it also brings itself back when the Blue Eyes White Dragon is summoned. Definitely a very important card for this deck. Of course, has a really good additional effect as well that can also sometimes come up. And of course, I'm using the 3 Sage with Ice of Blue, or the main starters as well. Of course, mostly to search out Maiden. You can also search out other level 1 like tuners and even like Effect Veiler. Using 1 Master with Ice of Blue. That is pretty much the central card of the Pure Blue Eyes variant. Because of course you kind of need your 2, your X and Always from Model of White. And with this card you can recycle your level 1 light tuners. And also it has a really good graveyard effect as well. But mostly it's just an extra tuner for synchro plays. They're really very nice. Then I'm using 3 Neo Geyser Seahorse, which is another starter in the deck. It's more of a weaker starter, but still works. And also it sends stuff like Maiden in White to the graveyard, as well as Blue Eyes Jet Dragon as well. And also can be an extender as well. So then for some hand traps, of course I'm using the 3 Effect Veiler. Of course some only use 1 of this card. Of course it is searchable, and also it's kind of an ancient card as well, because I can use it as the link button for Spirit with Ice of Blue. But I think as a hand trap, I think it's still pretty good, I would say. So that's why I'm using 3 of this card. Then of course I'm using the 3 of the really broken hand trap. I think probably should be banned. 3 Tron Lockbird. Of course it works against a lot of decks like Mitsurugi and stuff like that. And of course it's level 1 spellcaster as well, so again works with Spirit with Ice of Blue. Then of course I'm using 3 Asp Blossom and Jaw Spring. Very obvious, especially to negate Fualos and stuff. Then of course I'm using the 3 Muchami Fualos, very obvious. Pretty much max C. Then we need very nice. Then the spells and traps. Using 3 Vicious with Ice Blue, obviously really good starter. It is a -1, so if you get dashed, you're kinda in trouble. And it's a really good graveyard effect as well. The most is to summon out like Tyrant Dragon. And then I'm using 3 Bingo Machine Go as extra starters to search that during Vicious with Ice Blue. But of course it is a little bit weird because of course this starter does play into the role, but it's kind of necessary. Of course I have pretty much 15 starters in this deck for consistency. I'm using 2 Roar of the Blue-White Dragons. A little bit of a weird choice, but since Beastials are played somewhat, and I don't really want to get both of my Blue Eyes banished and then can't really do anything, so that's why I'm using this to potentially get back your banished Blue Eyes pretty much. I'm using of course the Muzzle White, obviously very important, because you can search it up with the link 1. I'm using 1 Grumble for the Crimson Dragon package, because I can search it out with 5 Crimson Dragon, definitely really good for your combo plays. Then of course I'm using that 1 True Light, pretty much the most important card for this deck, because of course it's starts your plays and there's also follow-up as well. Pretty much constantly bring back your Blue Eyes White Dragons, stuff like that. Definitely very nice. Once you lose access to this card, you're kinda in trouble. I'm using 1 Majesty of the White Dragons. Definitely really good as well. Pretty much like equals attack for this deck more or less. But then of course I'm using the 3 Infinite Permanents. Of course, very obvious. Obviously it's not as good anymore, but I think it's still good enough to be used in the main deck. Now let's see the next deck. So I'm using the 1 Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon. Definitely really good because this is the only negate for effects on the field, and there's a really good floating effect as well. Most of the time you're going to cheat it up with Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, but you can sometimes hard summon it as well. But most of the time you're not going to do it, and I didn't do it in this tournament. Definitely very important card for this deck. Then I'm using 1 Stardust Zephyr Divine Dragon, obviously for the Crimson Dragon package. Of course you can only summon it with Crimson Dragon, because you can only synchro summon this card. And of course it's really good because it protects all your cards from being destroyed by card effects once per turn, and also from battle as well. So it protects your True Light, which is very important. And also has a Monster Negate as well. And also destroys any card on the field once you use the Monster Negate. Definitely really amazing for this deck. Then, of course, I'm using the 1 Crimson Dragon. It's for the Crimson Dragon combo. Obviously, a lot of Blue Eyes players, especially the Blue Eyes primary players, don't use this combo because, of course, they are scared of Nibiru. But my deck pretty much completely has to ignore that that card even exists. But of course, even if you get Nibiru, you can most of the time you already have another backup play as well, because they probably use Nibiru at the wrong time. So definitely I think it's still very much worth using. Then I'm using 1 Hot Red Dragon Ashwind Abyss, because of course Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon is 11/9, so you can use Crimson Dragon on that and then summon out this. Also it's I'm using this because also a point for a side deck combo as well with Secret Words. Then of course I'm using the 3 Blue Eyes Spirit Dragons, the most important synchro monster in this deck, obviously. You can negate graveyard effects as well as of course it can cheat out many of the light dragon synchros. That's definitely really amazing for sure. Then I'm using 1 Light Storm Dragon for back removal, and that definitely is really good. I came up a lot in this tournament. Then I'm using 1 Age of Fairy Life Dragon, more of a newer edition. You can cheat out with Spirit Dragon. It can attack while in defense position, or Spirit Dragon has to summon in defense, so it works very well to finish out the game much quicker. It's definitely very nice. Then I'm using 1 Age of Fate Dragon. I'm using this because I have a certain combo, certain card in the side that I can use, as well as it's also kind of a time card as well. Then I'm using 1 Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon for a Wishes Tyrant Dragon combo. So of course then I'm using the Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon. That is very important for this deck, because sometimes you have trouble running over like bigger monsters like the Mitsurugi Ritual, as well as it's unaffected by trap cards and also can recycle trap cards and can attack everything. Definitely a really amazing card for this deck. And of course then the 1 Chaotic Seal, definitely still a really good backup plan, I guess. And it was important for the side deck combo. And of course, using that 2 speed with Eyes of Blue, definitely really amazing. It gets your combo going more or less, searching that speed spell, send the Blue Eyes to the graveyard, and it also can summon Blue Eyes monster from hand or graveyard. Definitely very nice. And of course, since it was a big event, we also going to show the side deck. So I'm using 3 Artifact Lancia in the side deck, obviously, but I actually never played against Maris, so I actually never used it. Then I'm using 2 Mushtarmi Purolia. Unfortunately, I don't actually own this card, I had to borrow it, and it actually was useful in some situations, like I think twice. I'm using 2 Ghost Ball and Ghost Bell and Hounded Mansion. It's definitely pretty good in this format, definitely very nice. I'm using 1 Sigil Wheels of Spellcasters. So that was part of the side deck combo I mentioned. Pretty much you use Angel Fairy Dragon to destroy your Mausoleum to certain search at this. Then you have your spellcasters like Maiden on the field, and then they can't activate spellcasters. So it's really good. It's really good against like decks like Mitsurugi, and it came up against the Genesis Castira as well. So definitely, it's really good. Then I'm using 1 Coldwell Grave if I'm guaranteed to go first. Obviously, you can main deck this as well, but I just didn't have enough space for it. And then I'm using 1 Tribute Deck Extant, also for going first mostly. I actually really hate this card. I drew it, and it was pretty much a brick. So definitely, I might actually not use it anymore at all in the future. So yeah, I'm using 2 Lightning Storms. Definitely very useful card, very nice. And then last cards in the side deck are 3 Freeman Droplet, because I think I needed something to out Detonator, and that can also be useful in a lot of other situations as well. Definitely very nice. So now let's talk about some of the matchups. So first round I played against True Draco, and in the first game, in the first turn of their turn, to activate Dimension Fissure, and I immediately had to surrender, basically. But of course in the second game I pretty much won easily, and in the third game they didn't draw into Dimension Fissure, and I didn't have Lightning Storm, so if they had Dimension Fissure or Macrocosmos, I would have immediately lost again. But thankfully they didn't, so I had could play through the other cards, and I won the duel and the whole match. But that was pretty nice. In the second duel, I played against Raisen Mitsurugi, and unfortunately that was complete wash, because in the first duel I activated Wishes, they asked me, I didn't have anything else. That was that, and in the second duel I couldn't really do anything either. So unfortunately that ended up really badly. In the third match I played against Mimikol. That was a really long match. The first duel lasted really long. Was really long because obviously the Mimikol cards are really annoying. I almost thought about surrendering in the first duel, but I decided that my deck can actually play through eventually, and I eventually did win the first duel. And then in the second duel, it was pretty close to time, and I definitely then did enough damage to win, pretty much. Definitely, that was pretty nice. In the fourth match, that was when I made the massive mistake. The first duel, I went first and I did my full combo, and my opponent wasn't able to play through it. That was against the Lightwind Fiatsmith. In the second duel, they went first. I was able to Lightning Storm the back row and then had to deal with Caesar. I was able to play through that, but in their turn they made Agdum Day, and with Engraver they had like very huge attack and I couldn't target it. Then in my turn I was able to basically go. Of course I couldn't get over it easily, so I had to pretty much run with attack with my Blue Eyes into the Engraver. I took a lot of damage, and then brought back Jet Dragon, and then Jet Dragon cooled out those Aghanim, then put back that into the extra deck, and then I cooled out that Engraver. But I made a huge mistake, or I was castled pretty much, and then unfortunately in the main phase 2 I I left Sage with Ice Blue on the field, and I didn't realize that I was actually had exactly 1800 life points or something, and they forced me in the main phase 2. In order to, I didn't want them to throw anything, so I just left the Sage there. I thought I was able to summon Spirit Dragon, but I didn't realize that I had just enough life points for Engraver to attack for game. So that was my massive fumble. I definitely regret that. But of course, I'm not completely sure. Maybe I actually had enough life points. I was gaslit. We're not completely sure, but either way, it was completely my mistake. And I could have played around that situation very well, but unfortunately, I couldn't make that decision at the time. So that was very unfortunate. So then I was pretty much out of top 8, but I could still get the playmat and sleeves if I could win 3 more matches. So the 5th match was against Regenesis Castira. That was a really weird match because, of course, in the first duel I lost. Pretty much I couldn't grind through the Regenesis package. Then in the second duel I pretty much won pretty easily, because I think I had 6th village, so that made very nice. And in the third duel I didn't really have much, but my opponent didn't have much either, and I pretty much summoned Tyrant Dragon, and they tried to and grinded with that, but then my opponent had 1200 life points, and they had like Regenesis, like the warrior thing, they're gonna bounce cards, and that Orcus Texas. So obviously Tyrant Dragon can attack both. So I attacked into the Regenesis monster. They used the Orcus effect to protect it, but I didn't realize that I can actually attack everything, so I attacked into Orcus as well, but then they tried to take their plays back, and I almost let them get away with that, but then I of course decided they can't take their play back like that. So I pretty much of course won that duel because of that, because I can't just let them take back their mistake. So I won that match, and then the 6th round again we played against White Forest. I did a full combo in the first turn, and my opponent wasn't able to play through it. Of course, it was like Zephyr, Ultimate Spirit, and Abyss, I think. Then in the second duel I lost because my opponent went first and I wasn't able to play through the White Forest combo. And in the second duel, in the third duel, I think I won as well, so that was pretty nice. And then there was the 7th round against Fiance with Mitsurugi. So in the first duel was really long. I only saw the Fiance with Engineers first, and I didn't really have much. Only had Speed Dragon and the Dream, True Light. But unfortunately they got rid of my True Light with SP, and I couldn't really I didn't really have any other resources really. And then they had the Mitsurugi engine as well, so I pretty much got destroyed there. And in the second duel, unfortunately, I completely bricked, and of course, that was it, more or less. That was the end of my tournament, and of course, again, that was my 3rd loss. So I ended up in 48th place. Of course, one of the other Estonians I went with actually got 10th place, so that was pretty nice. So of course, thanks to anyone who borrowed me cards, as well as the group I went with. So that was very nice companions to be with. So I hope you enjoyed this tournament Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile. For now, goodbye and Omakios. Out.